first story is titled, Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my dad on Facebook over his post about being a single dad? I've, male 16, lived with my grandparents my whole life. My mom took off when I was a baby and haven't seen her since. So my dad left me with his parents and they basically raised me. My dad was kind of around, but not really. He'd sometimes come to take me to his house for the night every month, drop me off and be gone again. As a kid, I used to always ask him how come I can't live with him, and his reason was always because he works a lot. When I got older, I sorta saw the truth, which is, he likes to live single lifestyle. He's had like a million girlfriends, and that's how I ended up with 4 other half-siblings. But you know, they still live with their mom, so we only get to hang out when it's my dad's custody time, because he just leaves them at my grandparents and doesn't hang out with any of us. We're all used to it by now, but what's annoying is, to his girlfriends and friends, he acts like he is a hero for being a single dad. He talks about how hard it is, then brings me up specifically because my mom walked out, so it's like he cares for me full time. I usually don't say anything, but it bothers me. He made a Facebook post the other day. It was an older pic of him with me and my brothers the one time he took us to a soccer game, 4 years ago. He was talking about sacrifices, but it's worth being a single dad. This made me mad. And I commented, you haven't even come to the house in like a month. Which is true. Haven't seen him since a few days after Thanksgiving. He deleted his post and got mad at me for embarrassing him. My dad said I was being disrespectful, and I don't know what it's like to be a single dad providing for us, so I don't get to act that way. He was really mad about it, and after I thought about it for some time, I guess it was petty to embarrass him by calling out his BS. So I wanted to know if it was a-holish for doing it. Now for the top judgment and more info. Not an a-hole. Truth hurts, I guess. A once-a-month parent isn't as comparable to single parents who have their kids full-time. He is only sacrificing one night a month to be with you. Though a question does pop into mind. Does he provide financial support to your grandparents for expenses? Same goes with your half-siblings. I hope he is being financially supportive. Also, does he celebrate holidays and birthdays with any of the kids? But other than that, one night a month is quite isolating, so you are right in calling him out. Also, his post embarrasses itself since he used an old photo. Guess he doesn't have anything more recent? Nah, he doesn't. My grandpa has his own business, so they never needed money from him. He spends money when he takes me out to eat, or buys birthday gifts. I don't know about my half-brothers. Holidays? Not really, but usually he does come by on birthdays. Yeah, so it is not a sacrifice since he is not working to help with expenses. It is when convenient for him. A father of convenience, I guess. As for holidays, I guess he is with his girlfriend at the time. Thanks for answering my inquiries. Either way, he should be called out and he should be embarrassed. Not an a-hole. Being a father and being a dad are different things. He may have been your father, boy, but he ain't your daddy. Not an a-hole. It sounds like both of your parents abandoned you. Just one of them sees you occasionally when it's convenient for him. It sounds like he's using OP to impress women. Fatherly instinct is attractive and he knows it, but he didn't actually have it. He's a deadbeat baby daddy that's painting himself as a single father to get laid. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my mother-in-law meet our baby before she died? Me, 29 female, and my husband, 32 male, had our daughter a few months ago. Due to some complications, I had to have an emergency C-section and she had to be incubated for a few weeks as she was born prematurely. We weren't able to be by her side at all hours of the day and it was agony for us, and it has made me overly protective of her. Eventually, she was strong enough to come home, and for the first 2 weeks of her being home, I was still recovering from her birth, and she was still so tiny and frail that we didn't go anywhere. We did have family members, in our bubble, come around to help out with housework, bring us meals occasionally, the usual, but they always came to us. We didn't go out and take the baby to visit people. My mother-in-law was a phenomenal woman, who'd been battling bowel cancer for 3 years. Over the past year, her body had gotten progressively weaker, and she was essentially bedridden, but was still very sharp mentally and was excited to welcome her first grandchild into the world. She was receiving care at home as they basically told us that there was nothing more they could do, aside from making her comfortable during the time she had left. We knew it was coming eventually. We just didn't know when. Understandably, my husband was eager to take our daughter over to his parents' house so they could meet her properly. But the thought of taking her out on a trip that wasn't absolutely essential, that is healthcare related, made me anxious. I didn't go over to visit while I was recovering, but he visited mother-in-law regularly alone. I was just apprehensive about him taking the baby and hated the thought of being apart from her again after what we'd been through, even though it'd only be for a few hours. I told him that I wanted our little girl to meet her grandparents so much, just not yet. Hang on a little bit longer. Sadly, mother-in-law ended up passing away before we could take our daughter around to meet her. We are all heartbroken, and the grief has hit my husband hard. He's starting to resent that I kept our daughter away from his mom, and is becoming quite hostile towards me. I feel guilty and selfish. There was no malicious intent behind it. I genuinely didn't think mother-in-law would be taken from us so soon, and my mind was too focused on protecting our tiny baby. The more I think about it, the more I feel like I was overreacting, and now there's no way I can fix this. My husband has been sleeping in the spare room, and I feel like I've sabotaged the happiness we should be feeling as new parents. My family and friends are on my side, and say I couldn't have predicted the future. I was just doing what I thought was best, and my husband is only acting this way because of grief. But I feel terrible, and I know I've made the process of losing his mom even harder than it would have been. My father-in-law is upset about it too, although he doesn't seem to blame me as much as my husband does. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Mother-in-law passed 3 weeks after our daughter came home. Edit 2. My anxiety at the time was not pandemic-related. It's a factor, yes, but wasn't my reason. It was more to do with separation anxiety. I know it's not a good reason either, and I should have just gone with them. I was just reluctant to leave the house once we were all home, after not allowing myself to recover properly after the C-section due to constant visits to NICU. Now for the top comments. Soft, you're the a-hole. You were understandably overprotective and perhaps are suffering from some post-traumatic stress disorder from the whole birth. You need to seek help. Your husband was visiting her, which means if there was something contagious, he was already bringing it home. And if you were so concerned, why didn't you consult a baby's doctor to see if it was okay for her grandmother to see her for a few hours? I can see how it would seem malicious, even though it wasn't. Believe me, I have major anxiety issues and do similar things where I'll blew off people because of an anxiety attack, and they don't realize I'm not mentally able to deal with them that day. Also, realize that he is grieving and probably not thinking clear, just like I don't think you are with your overprotectiveness of your child. This is better than what I would have said, so I am upvoting you instead. The only thing I would have added to my own comment was that it is the husband's child too. I was trying to put myself in the husband's shoes, and if my husband prevented me from showing our newborn to my dying father, I would have an extremely difficult time forgiving him. I would definitely be attending therapy or couples counseling. You're the a-hole. But the thought of taking her out on a trip that wasn't absolutely essential. The woman was dying and knew it, but that's not essential? Would you say the same if it was your mother? Everyone sympathizing with Opie is out of their freaking minds. You're the a-hole. You said you had no way of knowing she was going to pass away, and yet admit the care home said she was in her final days. Sounds like her death wasn't a surprise at all. You knew it was coming. You were told so. Your husband is not going to buy that excuse. I understand why he's upset. No matter what happens when he thinks of his mother, he will think of how his wife just didn't want to take her baby over there. And I say her baby because that's what she acted like. It wasn't an equal decision between these parents. She decided that she didn't want the baby to go over there. She didn't take her husband's feelings into consideration at all. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my parents they were bad parents to me? I, 19 male, have an autistic brother, 20 male. He's fairly manipulative because he realized pretty quickly that the threat of a meltdown would get in his way every single time. He is considered high-functioning by medical personnel, but he's got my parents convinced he just doesn't understand what he's doing, and they don't ever punish him. Doctors have told them that he understands, and that he knows what he's doing. They think they know better. They also expect me to revolve my entire life around him. I was never able to do anything I wanted because it upset his routine. I wanted to play a sport. Nope, his routine. I wanted to get a job. Nope, his routine. Friends? Yeah, forget about that. I tried not to be resentful, but I am. The problem: my parents are flipping out because I plan to move several states away and in with my grandparents soon to attend school. They keep trying to guilt me into staying because of my brother. I usually just say that I'm sorry that they feel that way, but I'm still going. Well, here's where I might be the a-hole. My mother was going on and on about how the world doesn't revolve around me, and how I was being really selfish, and how I was going to ruin my brother by doing this. How they'd always been the best parents they could be to both of us, and how we both got equal attention. I got frustrated and told her that she was delusional if she thought she or my father were ever good parents to me. They made my life revolve around my brother's. I had nothing of my own. He had to be the center of everything. I said he wasn't the center of the universe, even though she tried to make him it. I told her that the only people who were selfish were her and my father because they actively ignored me in favor of babying my brother, who played them like a fiddle to make sure he always got his way. I told her that his routine was not my problem, and that it was up to them to make the appropriate adjustments, and asked if she really thought I'd just not live my life because of him. She started crying, and I walked off and shut myself in my room. My father is demanding an apology for what I said, but I'm refusing. My grandpa said he's proud that I stood up for myself, but my parents are still demanding an apology for being an a-hole. I don't think I need to give them one. Am I the a-hole here? Not the a-hole. High five, virtual applause, and standing ovation. I was literally fist-pumping reading what you told your mom. Good for you. There's nothing to apologize for. You told her the truth. Absolutely nothing to apologize for. You're a teenager. You deserve to do teenager things like play sports or get a job, and especially hang out with friends. You deserve your own life and to try new things. Congrats for standing up to them, and best of luck for uni. Not an a-hole. Your parents abused you. They had this coming. I hope you find a better life and better family out there. Not an a-hole. Any chance you can move now? Agreed. His grandparents are ready and waiting. He should do what he can to move sooner rather than later. He can use the time to settle into his own new life. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for letting my niece call me her mother in front of her friends? I've been raising my niece, Hannah, since she was less than 1 year old. She's now 14. Her biological mother was my older sister and she was an addict. She tried to get clean but relapsed a few months after Hannah's birth and disappeared completely after that. She died a few years later. No one in the family could take Hannah in, and I didn't want her to end up in the foster system, so my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and I took her in. We're the only mothers Hannah's ever known. When speaking directly to us, Hannah refers to us as her aunts, but I've recently noticed that she has begun to call us her mothers when talking to her friends. It's very recent. That doesn't bother us in the least since we consider her our child. Plus, we have another daughter who is 7 and who obviously calls me and my wife Mom, so we can see why Hannah has started to do the same. I'll be honest, I almost cried the first time I heard her say that, and I've never explicitly discouraged it. My parents and other sister came over for Christmas. There are no virus cases in our area. We invited Hannah's best friend and her parents as well since their relatives live in another country and they had no one to spend Christmas with. My family heard Hannah refer to me as her mother and lost it. My mother told me I was disrespecting my sister's memory, and my other sister called me disgusting for trying to replace her. All of this happened in private and Hannah heard none of that, but it still broke me. Am I the a-hole for allowing Hannah to call us her mothers? Not the a-hole. You and your wife have raised and looked after Hannah since she was a baby. You are her mothers. Seriously? I don't understand why the family is mad. People get mad about the stupidest stuff anymore. It's just insane. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You've raised the girl since she was a baby. You are her mother. Her biological mom is her mother too, as is your wife. People can have more than one. I call my wife's mother Mom. Does that disrespect my mom? No. This is so true. Calling in-laws by names your spouse uses is common practice across many cultures, yet no one gets up in arms about that. Meanwhile, here is OP, fully raising a child since birth and someone wants to question whether or not she should be given a mom title. Please, biology is the easy part. The work to being a mother is a whole other effort. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Hannah sees you as a mother figure. You have been mothering her for 14 years. She knows who her biological mother is, and I'm sure that you and your wife have kept her memory alive. It's no different than a child who calls a step-parent by mom or dad. It's no different than a child who calls their friend's parents mom and dad. I think what happened is, this was a very visceral reaction from your mother because it cemented in her mind that Hannah's biological mother is really gone. It's another piece of acceptance in the mourning process. It may have been some years ago, but somewhere in your mom's mind, as long as Hannah saw you as her aunt, your older sister wasn't gone. Hannah should be a part of the process with your mother, and explaining to her grandma that it's not disrespectful to her biological mother, but rather respect for you and your wife who took her in when no one else would or could. Hannah should tell grandma that she loves her biological mother for giving her life, but she's choosing to show her love to the only moms she has ever known. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you with the next one. Stay safe.